beginning. It's been so long, I don't even remember where I put the microphone normally. Okay. So strange to be back. La 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 la. Just keeps going and going.
It's the song that never ends.
Yeah, that's a good nigun. It doesn't end. Okay, so I see Katie is joining us, and of course Arya is here. Bezrat Hashem. My mother will be watching in the near future. Shana Batsheva and Avital and everybody who joins us, and hopefully Yael is also there, and maybe Zahava will join later. So we're back after a month, I think, something like that. And Tishrei, l'chaim everyone. And it's amazing. It's very hard to get into Tishrei, and then it's very hard to get out of Tishrei. And it kind of reminds me of when I was in the army, the days I was in the army. When you're in the army, you're in another world. It's like just army world. And then you come back out and you're like, oh, wow, there's a real world out here. And then you get used to this world, get used to that world, get used to the Tishrei bubble. It's so interesting. Okay, so I honestly didn't even remember what lesson we were learning. Like, I looked at it, I'm like, what? I have no idea. So I remember Samech Bet. I have it marked here. And do you remember what we were learning? Or are you? No, it's amazing. It's like it was another world. So we were learning about how eating creates a unification between the Shekhinah and Hashem, and that a person can elevate the food that they eat through their emunah. Here's Yael. First shiur of the year. Bezrat Hashem. So now this is really a metaphor for connecting with Hashem when we're in this material world, which is the ultimate goal, which is what we're basically being challenged with and working on all the time, is trying to see Hashem in the obstacles that we have in our everyday life. And to remember that Hashem is there, and to not imagine that the obstacles are the real thing. For example, a person gets a bill, or a person has a medical problem, God forbid, or parnasa issues, or whatever it is that they're asking for, they need, or they're facing. Do they think that the boss is who gives them the money, or Hashem is that gives them the money? The boss is simply the means, the emtsa'i. The medication is simply the means, it's not the source. And our job is to remember that Hashem is always the source, even though Hashem created a world with nature and with a manganon, a mechanism that things work in a certain way, meaning that if, God forbid, somebody breaks their arm, then the doctor sets the arm in a cast and the bones will heal. That's nature. So we know that a person does a certain thing, they're going to get a certain result, for the most part. A person wants to be healthy, they know if they eat healthy and they exercise, they're going to be healthier than if they smoked and they ate fried food all day long. So we know that that's how nature works, but it's very easy to forget that Hashem is running the world. And that's the idea behind elevating the eating. So he says, how do we elevate the eating? We elevate it through emunah. And how do we build our emunah? We do it through fighting the Yetzer Hara, which comes and basically is cynical and says to us, nah, it's not really true. Like, did a miracle really happen? No, it didn't really happen. Is Hashem really making my heart beat? No, it's just nature. Is the sun coming up and going down because Hashem is making it happen? No, it's just nature. So that's the natural way of seeing the world, and we want to fight against that and see Hashem in everything. And the more that we can see Hashem in everything, the more we create this unification between the Shekhinah, which is Hashem's presence down here in this world, and Kuchabichu, which is I forgot what the terms are. There's transcendent and eminent. Those are the terms that are used. One is the inside the Chalal HaPanui, which is where we are inside the empty vessel, and outside of the vacant space. And we're creating this unification. We're bringing in the infinite light into this finite world. And how are we doing it? By having emunah when we face all of our challenges. Now, when you have a challenge, you want to actually deal with the challenge. You're not going to just say, oh, I just have emunah, I don't have to do anything. It's not enough. But to know that Hashem is the source behind it. So you ask your boss for a raise, for example. Your boss is the one who's going to make the decision. You're going to get more money or not. Tachlis. But Hashem is what's going to cause the boss to give you more money or not. And are you remembering that Hashem is that? When I gave the example many times. Michal is watching. I gave the example many times that the IRS did an investigation of me back in 2010, I think it was. I don't remember, a long time ago. And they sent me a bill for over $100,000 in the mail to my house here on Beersheba Street. $100,000 bill. I thought it was a joke. I called them. They said, no, it's real. I owe them back taxes. For a year and a half, I had meetings on the phone with this Mr. Gonzalez. And then after a year and a half, they gave me, I think, a $12,000 or $15,000 refund. Because, well, the reason I got the refund was because I had a child tax credit because my kids are American citizens. And that offset all the taxes that I owed them, and they actually owed me more money. But how did I get to that point? I actually have a very close friend. We were in the same group that was being investigated by the IRS. They were going through country, and they came to Israel, and they focused just on Jerusalem, and many people here, and just happens to be one of the close friend that lives here in the neighborhood. And I mentioned the story to him once, and he said they ended up paying $50,000 because they just negotiated with the IRS. They came to an agreement, and their lawyer told them, just pay it. So I didn't have a lawyer. I had a really bad accountant that when I went to him and I showed him the bill, he said, oh, you're dead. So what do you mean? He said, well, either you're going to die of a heart attack or you're going to get divorced or both. You're dead. So I said, screw this. I'm just going to call the guy and ask him what does he need. But before I got on the phone, every time, I would remind myself that Hashem is running the world. I would really tell myself, Hashem is running the world. Dial the number, pick up the phone. And there were times when he was like asking me all these questions, and I would tell myself, he's not making the decisions, Hashem is making the decisions. I was able to stay calm, answer all the questions, and it turns out that legally what I did was fine. They had made a mistake and everything worked out. But it's like one of those stories where you needed a emunah in order to get what you were actually supposed to get. Right? The famous story of Rabbi Nachman. The guy who finds the diamond and goes to London to sell the diamond, and the diamond gets thrown off the boat in the meantime, and he ends up getting even more money from the captain of the ship who bought all this wheat. The captain ends up dying, and he gets all this money that was put in his name. But it was only because of emunah and simcha. That is the essence of the lesson. That's what Rabbi Nachman is trying to say, just in a very deep and roundabout way. Okay, so now we're going to go into the actual text. לאחר שנתפאר כי על ידי שלמות האמונה מגיעים לייחוד קודשה, בריחו שכינתי פנים בפנים בשעת האכילה. says after he's explained that through having complete faith, we reach this unification of Hashem outside of this world, the infinite light, and Hashem in this world, the finite light, face to face in the time of eating. And the reason it is actual eating, we create a unification when we eat kosher food, and we say it with a bracha, we're creating unification, but it's also a metaphor for really saying that we're creating this connection between Hashem when we remember in this finite world that the infinite Hashem is running the world. He's going to explain that through this unification, Ashchina mamlitza al am Yisrael lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Shechina, the Shechina sees that we have so much faith in Hashem, it actually goes before Hashem and argues our case. She Yinaheg imanu b'nisim gluyim, that Hashem should act with us with open miracles. Kadei shetitchazek emunatenu od yoter, so that our emunah should become even stronger. Kshe ha'emunah kol kach b'shleimut, ad she'al yidei ze mitbarer ha'ma'achal mehara v'aklipot shebo. When a person's level of emunah is in such a high level that they actually elevate the physical food that they're eating from the negative energy that it has within it, because all food has within it the potential to have negative energy. Azai achilato yekera me'od. Then the person's eating is on a very high level, meaning that even though, I told you in the previous classes, that I'm guessing if it was fitting, Rabbi Nachman would have used going to the bathroom instead of eating, because that's the most primal thing. You're just going and doing your thing. And to remember that Hashem, that's the bracha that we say when we come out of the bathroom, to remember that Hashem is making my body work and giving me openings and ways for the food to be processed and to be put out of the body, that's really the ultimate level. Because a person could say, give me a break, I have to thank Hashem for going to the bathroom. God made me, I go to the bathroom. But that's kind of the point of this lesson. Yes, even in the most basic thing, like going to the bathroom, you thank Hashem for being able to go to the bathroom. And so I think he's using eating because it wouldn't be such an appropriate lesson to spend talking about going to the bathroom, but it's also on that level of going to the bathroom. It's like one of the most basic things. A baby is born, one of the first things it does is start to breastfeed, hopefully, if everyone is healthy and the parents are smart. First thing you want to do is breastfeed your child. For everybody, when they have their children, at least one time breastfeed your child, as long as you can. And then the baby starts to poo. So these are natural things that we follow us throughout life, and that's the most basic level. And that's where Rabbi Nachman is aiming at, to say, at this most basic thing, acknowledge that Hashem is running the world and Hashem is also behind nature. That's what he's saying here. Na'aseh yichud kuchabrichu shchinte panim b'panim al yidei achilato. Through a person's eating, they're creating this incredible unification of the supernal, of the infinite light and the light in this world. B'bchinat ha'ketuv v'yomer Boaz lerut, and this is what we mentioned at the beginning of this lesson. This is connected to Boaz saying to Ruth, go and eat the bread with my workers. Le'et ha'ochel goshi halom. Nitpa'er le'el. It was explained above. Sheromez bazeh. What's hinted at in this? She'al yedei ha'achila na'aseh yichud shel ha'kuchabrichu v'kol echad ve'echad lefi ma shetiken et midat ha'emunah. That through a person's eating, they create this spiritual unification between the aspects of Hashem, everybody on the level of how much they fixed or worked on their emunah. Michal says, Shalom from Warsaw. So, meaning that the more emunah you have, the more you're connected to Hashem, the more you understand that Hashem is creating this food and giving your body the ability to digest it. And if you take that one step further, that goes for the bank and the army and the traffic jam and everything that you run into, every obstacle And every challenge and every good thing, you know, you have the ability to see Hashem behind it. Kachu miyached et hashchina, and so a person unifies the Shechina, sheheh amunah, im HaKadosh Baruch Hu panim panim. How does a person unify the Shechina with Hashem? They do it through their amunah face to face. Ve'amunah metakenet et hakfirut shehayu bo mikodem. And amunah fixes the heresy that was within a person previously. She metakenet umamlitza alav lefnei Hashem. That it fixes and it argues for a person in front of Hashem. So very simply, if a person was a heretic, meaning that they just said, I'm giving up all of Torah mitzvot, or they're giving up, I'm not eating kosher, right? I won't eat shellfish, but I'm not going to eat kosher. They make those limits. And so they start eating in non-kosher restaurants and being a heretic. How does a person return to that? By having emunah. What is the emunah? The emunah is that Hashem said I can eat these foods and I can't eat those foods. So I believe that that's what Hashem really wants me to do. And because of my belief in Hashem, I'm going to eat those foods and not eat the other foods. And that's what it means to fix this relationship through emunah. Ki beyechud kucha ushchinto panim panim azai ha'emunah she'ashchina imamletzet al harechokim lefnei Hashem yitbarach. Because when we create this unification of having faith in Hashem, we're making this face-to-face connection, then the faith, emunah, which is also the Shechina, which is also the lower level presence of Hashem in this world, then the Shechina, basically your emunah and the Shechina go and argue in front of Hashem for those that became distant from Hashem. She'yikerev otam b'tzel kanafav, that Hashem should bring them close in the shadow of His wing. Hainu she'yimchol lehem Hashem yitbarach al emunatam shelo ha'ata b'shlemut. What is Hashem going to forgive us for? It's going to forgive us for not having complete faith. Because really, every time that we're distant from Hashem, it's only because we have a lack of emunah. We have a lack of faith in Hashem. And so the Shechina says, Hashem, don't punish this person. Don't be so hard on this person. It's true that they were lacking in emunah for a certain period, but now we see that their emunah has been fixed, and as a result of their emunah being fixed, they're now on the proper path, and they're reconnecting with you. She'yizku me'ata le'emunah b'tachlit hashlemut, that the person should merit from this point on to have complete faith in Hashem. Shelo yeshum emtzei beinam leben Hashem yitbarach kemo shenitba'er, that there shouldn't be any intermediary between them and Hashem, as will be explained. V'zeh b'chinat v'zeh hi militzata, and this is the argument of the Shechina when it goes before Hashem to argue on your behalf because of your emunah. Ki ikar hagorem letautam shel rechokim me'emunat Hashem yitbarach. What is the main cause that people are distanced from Hashem because of their lack of emunah? Umechimat sheikar yediat elokut eina ela migilui al hastam. The reason that a person is lacking in faith in Hashem is because their knowledge of Hashem's existence is not revealed, but rather it's hidden. Ki HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'atzmo usatum v'ne'elam, because Hashem is hidden. And this is the biggest challenge. This was my personal challenge, because when I was 13, even though I wanted to be a Reform rabbi, I came to this incredible revelation that there's no God. It's all a bunch of lies, everybody's just lying, and it's foolish, and I still love religion, I still want to be a rabbi, but I don't believe in God. I remember I asked the Reform rabbi, do I have to be a good Jew, do I have to believe in God? And he said, no, of course not. It's better if you believe in God, but, Torah is about following what it says in the Torah and not belief in God. Belief is not the main thing, although it is one of the first mitzvot to believe in God. But I understand where he was coming from. And, the quote from Reb Shlomo is, this guy once came to Shlomo and said, I don't believe in God. And Shlomo says, neither do I. And he said, what are you talking about? You're a rabbi, how can you not believe in God? He said, the God that you don't believe in, I also don't believe in. That God, no one believes in that God. I believe in the real God, the one that everyone believes in. It's a very smart answer, because you can say the old man with the cane on the cloud. I don't connect with that. And Shlomo is saying, well, neither do I, because that's not who God is. God, you'll spend a lifetime trying to understand who God is and what connection you have with God. So the guy on the cloud, not for me. So that's the argument that the Shekhinah is making. That's what he's saying the Shekhinah is coming in front of Hashem, and the Shekhinah is saying, look, this person, the reason that they did the things that they did, they were lacking in faith because they didn't see you. You're hidden. And how are they supposed to see you if you're hidden? So the way that you see Hashem, even though Hashem is hidden, is through Emunah. In a sense, Emunah is, we have facts, things that we can see and things that we hear and things that we understand. And Emunah, well, Da'at is really Emunah. It's the awareness of Hashem, even though we can't see Hashem. והאפשרות לקרב ידיעת אלוקותו אל השכל, and the possibility of bringing the godly awareness to a person's mental, physical intellect, היא רק מפעולות הנגלאות שהשם עושה בעולם, ומזה מבינים את הסתום והנעלם. How can a person come to see Hashem? It's only through the things that happen in this world that reveal to that person that Hashem is there. ומחמת שרואים מגלוי מן המידות, התנהגות המגולות שאינם מכירים על ידם את גדלותו, that because a person sees in a revealed way from the actions that happen, the revelation of Hashem that they didn't recognize before, now they can see Hashem's greatness. והנהגת העולם הוא על ידי מערכת המזלות. Okay, so we'll get to that in just a second. So I want to give you an example of this, which is really fascinating. There's this documentary on Khan they put it up 2 weeks ago. I started watching it, then I took a break for the Chagim. Started picking it up again today at work, like on my little breaks from working. It's called Yom Shelo Nigmar, the day that doesn't end. And they're following, in the beginning they follow hour by hour, October 7th, and then they start doing breaks of 6 hours, 8 hours. I think it's a 6-part documentary. I'm on the 5th part now. It's really insane. Still, nobody's explained why the army didn't show up. It's really amazing. Like now I'm on the section where they're starting at 6 o'clock in the morning on October 8th. And the army's still not there. They're now just starting to go around. You see them at the Nova Festival. So they have all the footage. They have footage from the terrorists, they have footage from the army, and they have footage that people personally took, and they put it all together with interviews. Okay. So from the previous episode, this is episode 4, there is this unbelievable story that's all documented with cameras inside the house. So there's this Russian couple on kibbutz near Oz, I think it was, one of the kibbutzim. And I don't know why they put cameras in every room of their house. They put them all over the house, outside, inside, everything. I don't know, I wouldn't do that. I guess they were scared.
Russians?
Yeah, that's why. But they weren't the only ones. There were a lot of people that had cameras. I think that they were concerned. They knew that they were living next to the fence. They just never imagined anyone would come over. But just in case, when they're in the mamad, they wanted to know what's going on in the house. I think that's the reason. So they have the footage. And you see this classic, Ole Russian couple. They speak very good Hebrew with the Israeli accent. And they had 2 mamadim, 2 secure rooms. One for the parents and one for their kids. And so when the sirens went off, the parents went to that one, and I guess they were small. And the kids went to the other one, they locked the door. And they see the terrorists coming in. So the father has everything on his phone. The kids in the other one have a phone, but they don't see what's going on. And they show the footage on the documentary, and you see the terrorists coming in, and they have these 2 arrows pointing to the 2 mamadim, so that you can see where the rooms are. And the wife is sitting there, and she says, I know that in a situation like this, the only thing that you can do is daven to Hashem. Totally secular Russian They'd also, this is taken almost a year later, they interviewed them. They don't look any more religious now than they did before, which seems strange to me. Okay, so she says to her children, time for you to daven to Hashem, and I'm davening to Hashem, and she writes to her whole family, and she writes to everyone daven for us, the terrorists are in our house. And she said, I'm davening that the terrorists won't see us, that we'll be invisible to the terrorists. So they were there for at least an hour, and you see them walking all around the house, back and forth, past the door of the mamad, and they don't ever touch the door. And they're explaining how the mother's telling the children, it's okay, when you get shot, you're going to die quickly, and we'll all be in heaven together. But I'm davening that the terrorists won't see us. And they didn't see them. They simply left the house. They couldn't find anyone. You literally see them walking back and forth, back and forth, back and forth for an hour. Checking the whole house, throwing everything around, looking for people. The doors are right there. And the terrorists didn't see it. And they even brought in friends. And the friends didn't see it. So that's exactly what Rabbi Nachman is talking about here. He says, when do you see Hashem's presence? You see it when the hidden is revealed. Something like that is beyond nature. It doesn't make any sense. And it is not just two people sitting there talking. They're talking as they're showing the footage in their house. So I would think after that, you would expect the two of them to look practically Haredi. I was surprised to see them not showing anything. Even saying, the wife saying, and now I light candles Friday night. I don't know, maybe she does. Maybe they cut it out, for all I know. But this is what Rabbi Nachman is saying. Why do we lack emunah? Because Hashem is there all the time, but we don't see Hashem all the time. When do we see Hashem? In those rare moments, miraculous moments. He talks about nisim, when a miracle happens and the hidden is revealed. And so I just happened to see this today, and it was fitting when I was learning the lesson for tonight. And we see it all the time. A lot of times parents, when a baby is born, they're very moved because they see the miracle of a birth. They see this baby is a combination of my wife and me, and just came out of her, and this thing is like my child. That's kind of the closest we get to Hashem, is having a child. Then when they grow up, it's a little harder to remember that moment, that miraculous moment. Of course, you love your children and you care for your children, but that one moment when the child is born, you have this revelation of Hashem's presence, really in a very special way. When I saw all the births. Only one of them did I catch him when he came out. That was Natan Chaim. He was born in the car on the way to the hospital. And yeah, that was entertaining for me. Noga did all the work. I just watched everything. But it's so that's the point. So you'll have moments. Now the point is, now when you have those moments, take advantage of them to work on your faith in Hashem. Don't just say, oh, well, we were really lucky, I davened that the terrorists wouldn't see us, and they didn't see us, and now let's get back to eating pork. Hopefully you take advantage of that, and you say, now let's get back to doing more Torah and mitzvot. Okay, because we see this, so now he says, now we're going to see the greatness of Hashem. How does the world work? It works through constellations, luck, chance, fate, whatever you want to call it. And that's how people fall into the trap of the mistake of idol worship. We have idol worship today as well. We just don't worship animals, but we worship money, and we worship wealth and power. A lot of people do. And you'll see if there's a wealthy person, and people know that he's a wealthy person, like my neighbor over here, you'd see him in shul, the guy he and his wife, they own this place, you'd never know they have any money. They look like they're practically homeless sometimes. It's like a principle for them, I guess. But you wouldn't know. But there's other people that are probably less wealthy than them, and they dress like really fancy, Gucci suit and Rolex, and I don't know what's the latest style of these things, but you see the person, you feel like, oh, that's an impressive person. And so people respect them just because of how they look. During COVID, I saw this video of a guy who dressed really fancy in a very nice suit and everything sharp, 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 and walked around JFK airport without a mask, recording himself. And he said, the reason nobody's stopping me is because I look like an authority figure. I said, I'm not. I'm just a regular guy off the street. But I look like an authority figure. And it was such a good point. So that's idol worship. We all do it in one form or another. So, but you don't want to get it to the point where you start you actually worshiping those things, meaning that you're turning your faith to the person instead of to Hashem. The person is only the means. So it says that the world works according to nature, and these fate and all these things that we see, and that's why people make the mistake. Kol echad lefi ta'uto. Every person according to their mistake, their level. V'yesh choshvim b'ta'utam she'akol al pi teva. And there are those that think, in their mistakenness, that the whole world is simply works on nature. Olam kamin hago noheg. The world just works. Hashem created the world, or whatever created the world, and the world just takes off and runs on its own. That God forbid there's no supernal force that's running the world, which is a really depressing way to live. It's one of the reasons that I stopped being an atheist. I heard this recently in an interview that I listened to. These two guys are saying, have you ever been an atheist? And the other guy said, yeah, I was an atheist. He said, how come you stopped? He said, well, you know the joke. I tried atheism, but I had doubts. So that's really essentially what happened to me. I tried atheism, and then I started having doubts. And one of the doubts was, can this all just really be random and nothing has any meaning whatsoever? We're just all living under Hobbes's social contract that I agree not to kill you so that you won't kill me. What kind of world is that? There's no meaning in this world. And so that led me to eventually creating a relationship with Hashem. But that's one way of looking at the world. V'akol hu al pi teva, and everything is just according to nature. V'yesh shema'aminim shekadosh baruch hu manhig et ha'olam, and there are those that believe that Hashem is running the world. Ela shechoshvim b'ta'utam, but they think in their mistakenness. Shetzarich la'avod et ha'emtza'i, that you have to serve the intermediary. Kagon ha'kochavim v'amazalot shedarkam ha'kadosh baruch hu mawid ha'shefa la'olam. For example, the stars or the constellations, because that's the way that Hashem brings the abundance into the world. And today we have famous people, and we have wealthy people, and we have powerful people, and those are the people that we end up worshiping as an emtza'i, as an intermediary. Kamosha ta'u Yisrael be'egon, just like the Jewish people sinned with or made the mistake of the golden calf. Shera'u la'atzos de'egon emtza'i beinam leven Hashem yitbarach. They wanted to make the calf the intermediary between themselves and Hashem. Shamul Aaron, they said to Aaron, Kum aselanu elukim asher yilchu lefanenu. Go and make a God that will go and talk to Hashem in our presence, like in our place. That means that it was an intermediary. Perush, the meaning is, Shabikshu rak mi sheyelech lefnehem v'sheyeh manhig shelahem. That they just wanted this God to go in front of them to talk with Hashem, but not that they actually believed that the calf was a God. And in these types of mistakes, in the mistakes of this type, rabim nichshalim, many have fallen into this trap. That they worship the causes. Kagon ishtatlut berufu'ah u'parnasah, that is, that the effort that they have to make in healing themselves or making a living, ki'ilu heim emtza'i beinam leven Hashem yitbarach, as if those are an intermediary between Hashem and the goal they want to achieve. Hainu shema'aminim she'Hashem yitbarach שהכל ממנו והוא הסיבה הראשונה. That is, that they believe that Hashem is the source of everything. Aval ma'aminim gam kein be'emtza'i, but they also believe in the intermediary. That's a hard thing. For example, over the years I've traded stocks, and that's a very hard thing to see Hashem's presence in the stock market, because you invest in Tesla, and Tesla has some great thing that happened, or Nvidia, and they make a ton of money, and the stock just triples and quadruples, and you're making all this money, and you think, well, I'm really smart, I invested in Tesla, and so did 50 million other people, so how can Hashem be involved in that? You could say Hashem made the stock go up and go down, and Hashem gave you the ability to choose that stock. Why am I invested in that stock and not another person? Because I made that choice. Why did I make that choice? Because Hashem gave me the opportunity to make the choice, and I made the choice. But you have to find Hashem in that, which is a challenge. ואומרים שצריך ומוכרח לסיבות של רפואה ופרנסה, ובלי זה אי אפשר. And a person says that we have to have the means for healing and for parnasa, and without that there's no other way. היינו שמאמינים למשל, הסיבה של הפרנסה הוא משא ומתן. For example, a person believes that the only way you can make a living is by buying and trading. ואומרים שהסיבה של המשא ומתן עיקר. And a person says business is the main way of making money. It has nothing to do with Hashem. כאילו חס ושלום, as if God forbid, בלא הסיבה של משא ומתן, that without having a business dealing, אין יכולת ביד השם יתברך ליתן להם פרנסה. That if you didn't have a business, then Hashem wouldn't be able to give you parnasa. Or if you didn't have a job, Hashem wouldn't be able to give you parnasa. It's better to have a way for Hashem to give you parnasa than to sit on a tree trunk with your legs crossed and meditate all day saying Hashem send me parnasa, Hashem send me parnasa, Hashem send me parnasa. It might actually work. People start taking videos of you, and then you'll make money from the videos because you'll tell them you want to take a video, you got to put $100 in the pushka box. Good work. But even in a sense, that is a means. So you have to have some means. But if a person, let's say, okay, is just playing video games and laying on the couch all day long, that's really nothing. They're not even doing anything. ובהסיבה של הרפואה, and the same thing for healing, שהוא סמים, which is drugs, meaning medication, עושים מהם עיקר. They make the main thing is the medication. כאילו חס ושלום, בלי הסמים, as if God forbid, without the drugs, אין יכולת ביד השם יתברך לרפא, that Hashem wouldn't be able to heal the person. ואין הדבר כן, and this is not so, כי הקדוש ברוך הוא סיבה כל הסיבות, ועילת כל העלילות, that Hashem is the source of everything and the cause of everything, ואין צריך שום סיבה, and you don't need any reason, or you don't need any cause. שעסקנו באלו הסיבות, that the reason that we are involved with these means, פירוש, גם בשעה שאנחנו מתעסקים, that the meaning is that even in the time that we are dealing with מחימת הכרח השתתלות, making an effort בסибот in the causes halalu, these causes של פרנסה ורפואה, of making a living and healing, צריך להאמין בהשם יתברך לבד. You have to believe only in Hashem, ולא לעשות מהסיבות עיקר, not to make the main thing the cause. אלא שזה עצמו רצונו יתברך, but rather to know that this, in essence, is Hashem's will. שנעשה השתדלות על פי הטבע. We have to make the effort that we have to make according to nature. אף שהקדוש ברוך הוא יכול לשלוח את הפרנסה והרפואה גם בלא שום השתדלות מצידנו. Even though Hashem can send us the healing and the parnasa, even if we didn't make an effort. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't make an effort. We should make an effort, but we should acknowledge that Hashem could send us this even if we didn't make an effort. And that gives us the humility to remember that Hashem is running the world, which strengthens our Amunah, which creates the connection between the Shekhinah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu outside this world. Okay. So I'm going to give Shalom Aleichem to everyone who joined us, to Ron and to Yechiel. I'm going to tell you a short story, then we're finished for tonight. The 45-minute ending is much better than an hour. An hour is too long. It's good. Just when Aryeh is falling asleep, that's when we're ending. Don't worry, if it was the other way around, I'd be falling asleep. So, I tried to look this up. I didn't remember which Rebbe it is. I think it's the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe. So when he was a boy, he would daven in the women's section in the shul, like he would learn in the women's section of the shul, which was empty when it wasn't like main davening or Shabbos or holiday davening. Normally the women's section is empty. And one time he's sitting there and learning, and this woman comes into the shul, looks around, doesn't see anyone there, runs to the Aron Kodesh and starts crying to Hashem, Hashem, I'm a widow, my children are orphaned, I can't afford to support them, I need help, Hashem, I need help. And she's crying, hysterical, and screaming and going crazy. And the Tzemach Tzedek, whose name was Menachem Mendel, as a boy, he gets upset because it's disturbing his learning. So he makes like a God voice, speaks up into the ceiling. This is Hashem. She says, what? Hashem, you hear me? He says, yes, what do you need? And she says, oh God, please, I have to have a way to make parnasa. I can't support my family. So he says, I'm going to give you the power to bless. Whatever you bless people with, they'll have. She says, thank you Hashem, thank you Hashem. He says, you can charge people for that and then you'll have parnasa. So she leaves, and sure enough, she goes and she tries. She sees somebody sick on the street. She says to him, you want a refuah? He says, yes, and she blesses him, and he's healthy. Word gets around, and people start coming to her. I think if I remember correctly, her name was Bubi Chana. And so people come to Bubi Chana, and they get blessings, people that couldn't get pregnant, people that want to get married, people that have parnasa, people health, everything. They come to Bubi Chana. So this went on for something like 30 years. And the Tzemach Tzedek, the Menachem Mendel was now the Tzemach Tzedek, was the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he had a boil, meaning like, you know what a boil is, right? Like a blister, a big blister in the back of his throat, and it was getting dangerous. And the doctors couldn't reach it with their tools, and they didn't know what to do, and it was starting to get infected, and it might have caused him to not be able to breathe, and really nobody knew what to do, and it was going on for days. And then somebody says, there's this woman that does miracles, her name is Bubi Chana. So he says, okay, bring her over. He completely forgot about the whole thing. She walks in, and the Tzemach Tzedek says to her, you have to tell me where your power to bless comes from. And she said, no, I can't tell you, it's a secret. And he said, no, I have to know. She said, well, one day I was in shul, and I cried out to Hashem for parnasa, and Hashem spoke to me and answered me, and told me, and that's where my power to bless comes from. So he realized that it was him when he was a boy. And he starts to laugh and cough, and he ends up popping the boil in his throat. And he realized that he was healed by Bubi Chana. Even though she didn't actually bless him, anything like that, he was healed. And why was he healed? Because of her emunah in the bracha that she got from Hashem. Her emunah was the reason that she had the parnasa, and her emunah was the reason that all those years later, she came back and she was able to heal the Tzemach Tzedek. So it was just the story I told this week in shul, and the story came to mind. Now all these stories are great. There was a guy, I don't even know if I should mention this, there was a guy in Australia that wrote to me how all of my stories are a bunch of made-up fairy tales, and I'm misleading people because I don't know any Torah, and I misquote everything, and it was really like this crazy email. And I really spent a couple of days really thinking what I'm going to write him back. I also asked him, can you please tell me how long you've been listening to the podcast and how old you are, so I have an idea how to respond. And he wrote back that he's in his 70s and he's never listened to an episode before. This is the first episode that he listened to. So I told him, I'm very sorry that you wrote. He wrote it in a very nasty way and also accused me of so many things I couldn't even read it. I just took, in the first few lines, I took a couple quotes. And I said, you realize a man in his 70s, you're going to be going up to the Beit Din Shel Mala soon, the heavenly court, and give an accounting for what you did in this world. And I hope I'm the only Jew that you've accused falsely and offended. And that was what I wrote him back. And he didn't answer me after that. But I thought that was a good way of answering him without, calling him names or anything like that. And really, what was the guy lacking? Emunah. Emunah. Yeah, you know people like that?
I was going to say, Rabbi Nachman says in another lesson that when you see opposition, it's actually a good sign.
It is, I guess. Yeah, that means I'm doing good work.
Means you're doing good.
I was very careful. I really gave a lot of thought. I wanted to make a strong impression on him, but I didn't want to hurt him. So instead of saying, you, I just want to say, this was, in the sense, you falsely accused me. I think you falsely accused me. We'll see. Bye.